So just a few weeks ago, I announced the 911 build by dropping a quick cinematic of the body style that I want to go for my 996 911 here. Now, take it or leave it, that body kit took inspiration from a lot of other Porsches as well as other cars, features of which that I personally liked. Now, while I do still have a lot to do on that kit, let's go ahead and jump over to the computer so I can break down exactly what it is the body kit is, and then we'll come back here and we'll talk about the other aspects of that project.
All right, so here we are in Fusion 360 where I designed the car. Now, initially to start out, we started with a 996 3D model C2 that I found online. Cost me a few bucks, but it was a nice little starting point. Coming from that point, I kind of started off here in the rear, which is the part that I'm least happy with. After that, we are moving on to the shark fin, which I absolutely want to redesign. Honestly, at this point, I might just get rid of it, because if I come over here to rear wing, I turn this off, it kind of has like a much cleaner look. But let's go ahead and get into the design of this guy. So starting in the rear, I kind of wanted something that had a nice big intake. In the 3D model that I used for the cinematic, I did get rid of the handle because I do want this part here to be a handle. You can see it's also not sectioned off here. So let me get a different model open. So this is a better representation of what we had. I had wanted to have an intake here, and this is going to be the primary cooling for the car. Something past there is we have the diffuser. The diffuser here is pretty basic as far as the shape goes. I do want to have something back here that kind of stands out for the rear, because if you go ahead and take a look with me here, the back of this does look kind of plain. There's a few things here that wouldn't physically work. For instance, the connection here to the rear bumper is kind of just a visual interpretation, as a lot of things are on this car. The rear of the car was the part where I started. I was absolutely the least comfortable when I started on this, which you can kind of tell, but there's like some waviness back here that I don't like. This has been converted to a body from a surface. So to kind of show you what that means is this is still a surface and not a body. So that's why we have all these different lines, and you can see they're smooth with no super insane deviations, which would lead to the waviness that is like kind of back here. With following the way the light works, it's super wavy in there. So those are the two big pain points on the rear fender that I really am just not a fan of. But moving on to there, we have a integrated wing here on the back, which ducks just behind the engine cover here and connects to the other side. So essentially this is all one piece. Now on the final design, I do want to design this a little differently, but we'll go over that here in a second. We talked about the rear fender, and this was just an addition from a different idea that I had. I don't know how I'm gonna proceed with that. But going from there, we have the side skirts. Now with the redesign of the rear end here, the side skirts will flow a little more evenly into it. As you can kind of see now, it just kind of like it flows into it, but I don't like this section here. It looks like it's just added on and not like it was designed to work with the car. Same thing kind of goes for the way the intake is shaped once we hit down here. And I'll touch on the redesign here in a second. Moving on to the fenders, which is where I started next. Essentially what I did is I took the fenders that were on the car initially, and I just remade them and then reshaped them. So essentially I reverse engineered it. So the shape of this is more or less the exact shape of the model. Now I won't say it's the exact shape of what it is on the Porsche, because there are a lot of body lines, like little minor details that were not on the model. For instance, up on the leading from the A-frame up to the roof line, there is actually a little divot that kind of disperses as it goes towards the rear of the car. And you can see this is all pretty much a solid curve on one plane going all the way down, is where it would legitimately just have like kind of a little dip here. But Outside of that, this pretty much follows that shape exactly. There are a few things that I did change up. Obviously, the way the front fender actually goes into any part of the front bumper is completely different. This is another thing that's going to have to be fixed in the redesign. But outside of that, we have this body line that kind of gets started from this canard. So if you look here, we have the canard. If you follow that exact angle, it follows all the way up to the divot here that goes from the wide body back to the normal part of the body. And kind of just follows up and melds into the door as where it rejoins up with the rear intake. Now that is something that I do want to keep on the redesign, but that is one of the things that I'm most happy with. This was mainly a inspiration from pretty much any wide body car. If you take a look at any of the wide body like Japanese cars, they'll have something similar to this. It might not have a sharp line, but it'll have something similar to this. Generally, it's a lot higher up. However, I do like this look of it being lower down on the wheel. Even the GT3 RS, the current generation, has it up here and it goes straight back, which again, I wanted to throw a little bit of angle in it. So that way, whenever you looked at it on the side, you had a body line that you could kind of see and follow. Now, as far as what I want to do with it when I come down here, with the redesign, that'll be something I'll decide with on the side skirt. Now, coming into the front bumper, I will say the front bumper turned out as best as it could for what I was trying to do. One of the big things that I wanted was I wanted these like almost like valence pieces that stick out for the intakes here to look like they were being ripped out of the actual body, or like the body was molded to them, which is why we have this two-tone here. It follows it down on the same plane almost. But outside of that, the way the front bumper kind of turned out, I am a fan of. I probably won't change much on this other than the lip here on the front. I have the curve in the wrong direction. I want the sharp part up top with the rounded edge on the bottom for airflow to actually be able to continue to stick to the splitter and not just kind of separate here and create a massive low pressure zone. Now, my favorite part of the bumper that was kind of a happy accident is you'll notice these like little body lines here, and these actually follow this and come back down, and it kind of ends up turning into a nose unintentionally. And when I switched over to it, I liked it enough to not get rid of it. I might refine it a little more so that it follows it. It might like meet up to it here. So it will follow a curve instead of it coming straight down, and it will line up with this edge here. But again, we'll talk about stuff like that on the redesign. And that's going to lead us here to the most drastic change as far as the front end goes, and that is our headlight buckets. Now, this is designed in a way for it to be visually appealing. This is not a practical design. And the reason why is because each one of these headlights are independent projection elements, and they have no housing to them whatsoever. As you can see, there's like a little hole back here. Initially, how I had designed it is to have a solid or single projector here, and then have DRLs that kind of went out to the side. I wasn't a fan of the way that looked, so I decided to go for the single bar DRL that kind of capped off the three elements here. Now, when we actually make the version for the car, this is going to have to be a housing, or these are going to have to be sealed individually, because that is going to cause issues, and those are not issues that I actually want to replace, or I actually want to deal with in the future. You can also see they're just kind of floating in there, but again, that's for the visual design. That's not something you can really tell in the video, especially because of the global illumination or the global shading that took place in the render. But outside of that, the car is pretty much left the way that it is. The back bumper, all this and everything else is the same. I changed all these textures of carbon fiber, and everything else is pretty similar. Now, as far as actually redesigning this for it to be up to my standards, I do want to kind of reevaluate the shape here, because if you can kind of look from the back here, I want to see if I have any construction planes. The change in angle isn't really smooth, and I would want that to smooth out. and it's kind of exacerbated because this top surface doesn't actually really change all that much as it goes forward. You can kind of follow the line right here. It kind of just stays in the same spot as we move this forward, as where obviously this angle changes as it becomes a little more bulbous as it goes forward. And I really don't, or a little less bulbous as it goes forward. And it just kind of fights with the actual geometry. The place that it actually works the best is right here. As you can see, the angle is not that different. Again, this was something that I designed first, so I didn't actually figure out how to get these smooth transitions. Turns out I would have had to just remodel this whole rear fender, which is what I ended up doing for the door. But that's something that I really want to change. I just kind of want to change the overall shape to this whole thing here. So moving on from there, I want to redesign this entirely. We're going to be doing different taillights. This whole rear end part is going to change because of the engine swap and how we're extending it. And the actual axis of the engine, I want to be more than just this like 3 square foot opening in the back. In doing so, the design for the diffuser will probably change. It might get a little more dimension to it other than being completely parallel edges to each plane. So I might put like a little curve in here and have it jut up and whatnot. I do want to keep the interface here between the diffuser and the bumper similar, if not the same, just because I like the transition from the painted surface down to the carbon fiber, the bare carbon fiber. That being said, this whole angle and everything here will change. Like I said, I'm going to be redesigning this entire rear end. Now, with the whole rear end being changed, one thing I do want to do, because we are cutting this in half, the rear seat's not going to be here. So I want to convert this rear quarter glass into an intake for the engine. So as this will be our primary cooling for the engine, this will be the air for the engine. And it will be one on either side. That way it can breathe the way it needs to with bypasses and whatnot under the engine or under the rear clam, so that it's not going to create high pressure in here and cause weird aerodynamic issues. But with that being said, that's going to deem for a whole rear design here. Probably going to do glass port to the engine with these pillars coming down to narrow it quite a bit before capping it off down here. We're going to build the third brake light into the rear lip. And outside of that, other design decisions are just kind of up in the air. As I had said, I want to redesign this a little bit more. And essentially what that's going to entail is kicking this arch out just a little bit more, so it's a larger opening down here, so that I can get more definition in the change in angle to the bottom, in which case it will actually kind of join up with the side skirt right here instead of just being parallel to the side skirt up to this point. I do want to do a rear clam, so we're going to have to make a body part line somewhere in here, I'd imagine, wherever it's going to seem to be the least visually intrusive. As far as the door, I'm not going to change much on this. Honestly, it's probably just going to be like this. What I'm going to end up doing is, on the original design, this is actually its own piece, and that's what I'm going to do for the actual creation of this feature. And that's only because it's easier than making an entire door, and I don't want to make an entire door, at least not in this iteration. The fenders, honestly, I don't want to change much. The only thing I might change is this front face here in the headlight bucket. I might change the bumper up a little bit more for it to flow better instead of having this sharp edge here into the headlight housing. Speaking of headlight housing, I am going to have to design one and design a way for it to mount as well. And as far as the front bumper goes, again, one thing I want to change is going to be the front lip. We're going to reverse the dimensions of this front lip to have the rounded part on the bottom with the sharp edge up top. Outside of that, I might refine some of the body lines and whatnot. I do want to do a pass-through or a vent in the hood. That way the air can flow through there and go over the top of the car. Also, that would kind of, depending on the way I design it, create more downforce here, allowing that air to flow freely through there and up and over the car. But outside of that, that is pretty much the design of the car. And as far as what we need to do to this model outside of the actual redesign is going to be 3D scanning the car, 3D scanning the mounting points for like the front fender and bumper so that I can actually implement them into this design, which shouldn't be entirely difficult. And also figuring out the dimensions and whatnot of the engine bay area and where the suspension pieces can go to be able to implement these body parts onto that, so that I can figure out where we're going to cut this so that we can extend it. And essentially what I imagine is going to end up happening is the wheel's just going to move from here to like here. So it's just going to extend it, not a whole bunch, but a little bit, enough for it to be visually different. But yeah, that is pretty much the design of how this all works. And in doing all this stuff, I would like to just hang out in the live stream and talk with you guys if you want to watch the process. So that'll be something that I'll do in the future on the channel. If people actually end up watching it, I might end up scheduling it so I have it done at a certain time, or I actually schedule time to do the design on the car. Outside of that, it'll probably just be like a sporadic thing with the VODs being left up on the channel for you to watch in the future. But let's go ahead and hop back over to the garage.
As I had alluded to when going over the body kit for the car, we have to do an extension to this car. And the reason why is because I want to swap out the engine to this and convert it to a mid-engine car instead of a rear-engine car. Because I want to engine swap to the either Toyota 1GZ FE or the Mercedes M120. Both being variants of a V12 engine, which either or are about 20 inches longer than the engine in this car. And as it's already set up, if I were to just leave it as a rear engine and I were to put either one of those engines in there, it would throw off the weight balance so much that I'm pretty sure this car would be virtually undrivable. And even if it was technically drivable, I do not have the skill, nor could I even think about learning the skill set to engineer it in order for it to work as this car originally drove. So instead, we're going the GT1 style, and we're going to switch this car to mid-engine. So to do that, we're going to have to cut off the rear of this car. We're going to have to extend it around 18 to 20 inches so that we can take the transaxle, rotate it, and flip it upside down. That way we get all our gears in forward, because otherwise we would get it 5 gears in or 6 gears in reverse and 1 gear forward, which is not something we want. This is actually a transmission, not the exact one in this car, but the one of the 996.2 that they use in a lot of the kit car builds. And that's exactly what they do. They rotate it and flip it upside down so that they can run those in those mid-engine cars. Now there's one of 2 ways I want to go about the tube frame in the back. We're either going to do chromoly, which would be the easiest way, or we're going to go carbon fiber. I have seen a couple different methods of actually doing carbon fiber tubing, and a lot of the generative modeling that I have access to in Fusion, or can have access to in Fusion, will allow me to get a nice structural design, keeping the rigidity and everything in the rear, and also just have it be carbon, because I know a lot of you have seen some of those very interesting organic generative design structural pieces, and they look alien almost. One of my favorite cars out there, the Apollo IE, was pretty much designed using that entire philosophy. Now, it goes without saying, I'm not an engineer. However, I do like doing these types of things. I like solving problems, and I'm a mechanical guy. So it's definitely something that I'm willing to dedicate myself to actually doing, and doing it right. I don't want to half-ass anything, and I'm not going to half-ass anything. If I'm going to put myself behind it and actually put the effort into it, I'm going to do it the right way. Now, with that being said, that's going to mean that this project is going to take a while, and by a while I mean a few years. I want to have this car on the road, maybe not entirely finished, but on the road in about 2 years. So at the time of filming, this is the beginning of November 2025, which means I would want to have it done by the end of the year 2027, beginning of 2028. With that timeline existing, that will give me the amount of time to do the research needed, in addition to the research I've already done to accomplish this goal. And the second thing is money. Obviously, this is not going to be a cheap build, And it's not something that I can just come out of pocket with right now and buy all the parts like I did with the Z. That was a relatively inexpensive amount of parts that I needed for the car, and I was able to buy in bulk at the point in time. That is not an option for this car. We're going to be in the tens of thousands of dollars as far as just materials go, let alone the actual parts and things that I'm going to need for the car, including the engine, a lot of the research and development that's going to be needed for getting the transmission mounted up, getting everything mounted in the way it needs to, getting the steering geometry and everything perfectly set, and just honestly a lot of the fixtures that are going to be needed for creating the car. So that's where you guys come in. If this is something that you like, that you think someone will like, or that even if you have a friend group, please do share this video, or actually any of the 911 GTD videos, over to them so that we can grow this community and make this build possible within that time frame. Otherwise, this 2-year build plan will be a 10-year build plan. Because best believe this is something that I'm going to do as long as I am physically and financially able to do so. If I am a paraplegic, I will even be in here trying to do this. Granted, I'm going to need a lot of help if that's the case, but that's still something that I'm going to try to achieve. And that is my commitment to myself, to you guys, and to the channel as a whole. With that being said, if there's any questions you have about this build, please do drop those down in the description, as I would like to do a Q&A, either a live stream or something in the future. I do want to do some live streams while I'm working on this car here in the garage when we do hop into this, because as I said, it's going to be a timely build, and I'm not just going to drop videos of very incremental steps, because I can go days and weeks with just designing something and researching something and just testing stuff and not actually having any type of substance for a video. So I want to do live streams of us working here in the garage. So if that's something that interests you, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Also, if you like the video, please do hit the like button down below. Click that bell icon and click also you get notified whenever we drop new videos. And as always, I want to thank you again for watching. Peace out, and I'll see you in the next one.